Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I'm going to be doing the level 80 overview for the blackmage. Blackmage is seeing quite a resurgence in Shadowbringers. Back towards the end of Heavensward, blackmage started to get kind of pushed out of the meta because summoners upmarch kind of began because of the fact that they brought a battle res towards the party, and especially for progression rating going forward into Stormblood, red mage also having a battle res made it so that black mage was kind of the only caster that would just sit there and deal damage, whereas both red mage and summoner had this battle res available to them. And then as well the fact that both red mage and summoner also had a party utility damage buff in that of embolden and I forget summoner's alternative. But basically they had the battle res, they had the team composition kind of like rate-wide damage buff as well, which made it so that they were heavily favored over a black mage, because black mage damage output usually just wasn't justified to bring them over having that extra resurrection available because of the red mage and the summoner. But now going into Shadowbringers, black mage is restored to its old glory in the sense that they have a lot of damage now, and a lot of their old restrictions are not so restricting anymore. Back in the day when you thought of a black mage, it would just be the caster that sits in the corner of the arena, just casting constantly, trying to move as little as possible, and a lot of that is still true. You still don't want to move as much, so minimizing movement is still pretty key to playing black mage well, but because of all of the new quality of life changes that black mage has in the form of a shorter cooldown on sharp cast, triple cast still being there, you still have swift cast, and Xenoglossy now also being available to you, meaning that you can basically plan out your instant cast a whole lot more over the course of a fight, meaning that you are a lot more mobile for the moments that you need to be very mobile. So let's take a look at the black mage. Black mage is a pretty simple concept. Let's go and hit our Blizzard first and use Enochian. Now Enochian is very important because it gives us access to our strongest skills, which mainly is going to be Fire 4 and that of Despair. But you can also see like one of the first quality of life changes that they did with black mage, which is this thing right here, Umbral Soul. This is mainly for downtime, as well as for when you're in a dungeon, for example, you're running around. One of the most annoying things was that every time we were in a dungeon, you would always be using transpose to switch from one stance to the other, so you could keep this timer ticking right here. When the timer reaches full, it gives me one stack of Xenoglossy, I believe, or Polyglot, I believe it's called. And you can spend one of those stacks on either Foul, which is an AOE attack, or on Xenoglossy, which is a single target attack. Oh, I was too late here. But yeah, so basically, this thing right here is one of the big reasons why black mage is so good right now, because it's one, an instant ability, and two, you can get 2 stacks of it. So you can basically save up 2 instant casts for when you need it, so that you can 1, move around, and 2, use your off-global cooldowns. So let me just get my eyes back up. To get this timer started, you do need to use Enochian. To use Enochian, you need to be in one of your 2 stances. I can also be in my fire stance when I use it. But we're just gonna go back to ice. So as you can see, I just have one stack right now. If I use my Umbral Soul, I get 1 stack and also an Umbral Heart. What these Umbral Hearts do, I'll talk about in just a second. So the main rotation of black mage is about switching in between ice and fire. While you're in ice, your mana regens incredibly fast, but when you are in fire, your mana stops regenerating altogether. So when you go into fire, which is like your big damaging portion of your rotation, you're going to be using Fire 4, which is your hard hitting ability. Use Fire 1 to reset the timer on your gauge, and then to finish off your rotation in the fire stance, we use Despair to finish off all of our remaining mana. Then we use Blizzard 3 to go back into ice, and as you can see, in just a matter of seconds I am full mana again. All while my timer keeps ticking, and as my timer keeps ticking, I get stacks of my Polyglot, which means I can use it on a Foul, which is AoE, or I can use it on Xenoglossy, which is single target. Now other than this, you also want to be keeping up your dot, which is Thunder, you have a single target variant, which is your Thunder 3, and you also have an AOE variant, which is Thunder 4. So just depending on if it's single target or AOE use, you just choose in between one of these two. Other than that, for both Thunder 3 and Fire 1, have the ability to proc. When they proc, your Thunder will just become an instant cast ability, and it will front load all of its dot duration into just one attack. Whereas with Fire, when you use it, it has a chance for Fire 3 to become an instant cast and cost no mana. The reason why this is really good is because, one, it allows for more movement, it allows for more leniency in your Fire phase, so that you can use, for example, Xenoglosses or refresh your Thunder during the very tight timing of your Fire phase. But it also allows you to double weave and do some other cool stuff. So I'm going to go into my Fire phase. I'm going to use Sharpcast, which guarantees the next skill to proc its effect. So now when I use my Fire 1, you'll see over here that my Fire 3 is now procced. So you can see I got the Fire Starter proc. And then this allows me to, for example, deplete my whole mana pool. I can now instant cast this, use Mana Font, which regenerates part of my mana, another Fire 3 and another Despair, which is a lot of damage. So that's kind of where Sharpcast comes into effect. You can use Sharpcast once every rotation. So the usual rotation is you go into your Ice stance, you use your Blizzard 4 to get your Umbral Hearts, more on that later. Then you go into your Fire stance, you front load all of your damage with Fires, you refresh Thunder where it is necessary. Ideally you'd refresh Thunder during your Ice phase as like an actual filler cast to make sure that you have your maximum amount of mana back. But if not, you can also totally do this during your Fire phase. So for example, let's say I use Thunder with Sharpcast. As you can see, my Thunder is lit up now. So the next time I use my Thunder, it is going to be an instant cast ability. So Fire 1, to make sure I don't drop, instant cast Thunder whenever I feel like it. Technically, you don't want to use your Thunder to like overcap, I guess you could say. Either you use it when the proc is about to run out, or you use it when the dot is about to fall off. You don't want to like use the proc when there's 10 seconds left and the dot still has 20 seconds left or something like that, because that's a bit of a waste. But yeah, so that's kind of how it works. I'll do a bit of a longer rotation in just a second, and you could see a bit at the beginning of the video as well. Now, some of our other skills. We have Ley Lines. Ley Lines is kind of what makes you the turret, as it makes all of your spell casting go a lot faster. This of course only works when you are actually stationed inside the Ley Lines. So as you can see, all of my casts are going a lot faster now, meaning that there's also more wiggle room with refreshing this Fire buff or Ice buff when you are in Umbral Ice. But what you can also do is you can move out, because sometimes a mechanic will make it so that you have to move out. What you can then do is use Between the Lines to jump back into it. This is on a very short cooldown, so you can just run out. Well, my Ley Lines just expired. But then you can use Between the Lines to teleport back to your Ley Lines. So say there's going to be an AoE over here, where your Ley Lines are. You run out for the AoE, you cast Xenoglossy, for example, for the instant. You use in Between the Lines to teleport back to your Ley Lines. Not only can you teleport to the Ley Lines, but you also have Ethereal Manipulation on a 10-second cooldown, which allows you to teleport to a party member. So using this, you can already limit a lot of your movement, as you can technically use, for example, the ranged DPS, who has free access to movement, as kind of like your partner in crime to teleport you around the map. Kind of like that. That's one way where movement becomes a lot simpler. You can just use your Xenoglossy to get the instant cast, and then Ethereal Manipulation to your teammate. Then use, for example, your Fire 3 proc or something to get another instant cast to teleport back to your Ley Lines. Stuff like that. Now, those are not the only instant casts that you have available to you. We also have Triple Cast, which makes it so that the next three spells that I use do not require a cast time. The best way that you can use this is on Fire Force and on Despair, as those are your longest cast time abilities. But in general, you just want to use this on cooldown. So I'll go into my Fire phase real quick. I hit Triple Cast, and now I can just move around while casting my Fire Force. Now, of course, if I were to cast something like Xenoglossy or a Fire 3 that has a proc or something, then I do not consume one of the stacks. So it makes 4 casted abilities instant cast, rather than just the next 3 abilities that you use. So I can technically use like 2 Fire 4s, 2 Xenoglossies, and then the third Fire 4 that I'm going to be using still is going to have that instant cast available to it. And that's pretty much all there is to its single target rotation. Black Mage is relatively simple in the sense that you just basically want to be going from ice to get your mana back, going into fire to spend all of your mana on those powerful fire abilities, finishing it off with Despair, and then you basically try to use Sharpcast to get procs ready for when you need movement, and if that's not enough, then you still have your Xenoglossy that you can use for movement as well. And if that's not enough, you can always just clip your GCD, use Ethereal Manipulation to move to one of your party members or something like that. So yeah, that's a quick rundown of the Black Mage. Some other cool ability that we have is Mana Font. This will restore 30% of your MP. This makes it so that you can do some really cool stuff. So for example, if I were to go into my fire phase, I use Sharpcast, I use my 3 Fire 4s, I use Fire 1 to reset my buff over here. Then I now have the instant cast Fire 3 that costs me no mana. I do 3 more Fire 4s, I use my Despair to deplete my mana, instant cast Fire 3 Mana Font to get mana back, I can do another Fire 4, and I can do another Despair. So that's kind of like the combo that you can do with your Mana Font. This also got kind of changed back in Stormblood, and before it used to be called Manification, where you would sacrifice part of your HP to transfer into mana. Now it just gives you 30% mana, so that's a nice buff. Mana Ward is also something that creates a 30% shield totaling of your maximum HP, which is really nice because then sometimes you can just sit in an AoE that you otherwise would have had to dodge. But now, then again, since you have so many instant cast abilities available now anyways, just clipping this into your rotation probably isn't the best thing you can do. It's probably better to just move out of the AoE using an instant cast rather than using this. On the other hand, it is pretty nice to use because you can use it for something like, for example, if you are out of range of a heal and the healer can't get to you in time and there's rate-wide damage, you can just use this to make sure that you survive. Now, if we look to the AoE rotation real quick, we also have some small improvements in the sense that freeze is now actually worth it. So when we go into AoE, we go into our fire phase and we use a spell called Flare. Now, Flare depletes your complete mana unless you have Umbral Hearts. So I'm just gonna cast another Flare, then we have no mana, then we can use Freeze, which is the AoE version of your ice spell, to get back into ice. Now, this will give you full 3 stacks, meaning that you're gonna regen quite fast, and give you 1 Umbral Heart. Now, the Umbral Heart is pretty important for all of your fire skills, as it halves the cost of your fire spells. So if I go back into my fire stance real quick, I'm gonna use 1 already. So as you can see, my fire 4 costs 800 MP right now. Now, if I deplete my 3 Umbral Hearts, you can see that now my fire 4 costs 1600 MP. So it's important that when you're in your ice phase, you use Blizzard 4 to give yourself 3 Umbral Hearts, and then you go into your fire phase, and then you spend those Umbral Hearts on your fire abilities. Now, one thing that you also have to note is that Flare normally consumes all of your mana, but when you use it with 1 Umbral Heart, it only consumes 60%. A little bit more than 60%, I think, but just about that. So you can use 2 Flares back to back. What you can do, however, is if you have Mana Font, you can use 3 Flares in one go. And then you can use Freeze to go back into ice, then you can cast like Thunder 4, for example. As a filler, you can use your Foul, which is also AoE, of course. And then you go back Fire 3, for example, triple cast, Foul 1, Flare 1, Flare 2. And then if my Mana Font was up, I could use Mana Font, Flare 3. If I had like a potion that gives me mana or something, then I could get like a 4th one in there as well. So that is pretty strong. It's a very long cast time, so it feels kind of bad to just sit there casting for a very long time. But it's definitely worth it. So that is kind of how your AOE rotation works. So let me go and drop all of my stacks. I'll go out of combat real quick to reset everything. And then I'll show you the opener that I like to use. Switch real quick. And then I'll wait for my triple cast to come back up. Blackmage also asleep. You don't really use this. I don't actually know why I have this on my hotbar. And then of course for party mitigation they have Adel. But other than that, Blackmage is just the selfish DPS job in the game right now. But still very fun to play regardless. I don't have modification on me, or mana font, but I'm not gonna wait the 2 more minutes for that. So usually what I do, I use the Sharpcast opener, which is the most fun one in my opinion. You wait until there's about 8 seconds left on this, then you use your Blizzard, use your Enochian, Thunder 3, Blizzard 4 to get your Umbral Hearts, use your triple cast so that your flares go faster, use your Ley Lines, 4 Fire Force because we have the Ley Lines, Fire 1, I should have actually Sharpcasted that one, but doesn't matter. And then we end our fire phase with a Despair. I kind of fucked it up here, but it still kind of works. And then we go back into our fire phase. And it just kind of repeats like that. So as you can see, my timer here is about to run out. So I can cast my last Fire 4, I can use my instant, which also immediately refreshes the dot, use Despair to finish the fire phase, go into my ice phase, Blizzard 4, I'll use a Xenoglossy here, so that I can get my extra mana back, and then my triple cast is up again, I can use that to weave Sharpcast, to get up a free Fire 3 proc. Now my Thunder is about to fall off here, so I'll use another Thunder 3. I can go back to using Fire Force. Now, because I had to weave this, my fire is normally a bit tighter, but since I have that free Fire 3 proc, I can just use it there, and then use my Despair. Go back into Blizzard. Oh, we procced our Thunder 3, so I'm going to be able to use that to refresh my dot. Sharpcast, and now I'll actually be able to show you what you normally should do, sort of, during the opener. We're just using our Fire Force. We're using our Sharpcast on our Fire 1, more Fire Force, until we almost run out of mana, we Despair, and then we do that mana font trick, where we get our mana back, and actually have to refresh the dot, forgot about that one, then Despair, and we're back into the ice phase. And then of course if we needed movement anywhere, we could have used our Xenoglossy, we could use this for movement as well, triple cast if need be, can move around some more. So as you can see, like, Blackmage has a lot more movement in their kit now than they used to have, so it feels a lot better to play. There's a lot more options for you to weave, there's a lot more options for you to move, and its damage output is just incredible right now as well. And then the fact that you do have that kind of like you don't require mana anymore to swap in between stances as well, makes it so much better to play than it used to be back in Stormblood, as every time you were switching stances you needed to make sure that you had enough mana ready. So especially for when you were using your flare in your AOE rotation, for example, it felt really bad because you would always end up with no mana, then you'd have to use transpose, wait for a mana tick or something like that, and then it would just feel really bad. And right now all of those issues have pretty much been addressed. Blackmage has never felt as good as this. So yeah, I'm really happy to be playing it again. Blackmage used to be one of my favorite casters back in Heavensward, but I kind of jumped on the Summoner train like pretty much everybody else did. But right now Summoner doesn't really feel that good in my opinion. There's a lot of junk, like clunk I guess you could say. in the summoner rotation right now. And blackmage just feels so fluent, it feels so good. So I'll definitely be playing it quite a bit. I might even try and do some traps on it, on savage raids in the future. But it all depends if I can actually find some people for it, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna do so much thingies in Party Finder with it. But yeah, it's pretty fun. Definitely recommend people to try it out. It's better than it's ever been before, so if you're somebody that used to like blackmage back in Heavensward, or maybe towards the end of Stormblood, then you're probably already playing it now, because it is so good. A lot of people that I know are already running it over a summoner or a red mage once they're done with progression on the fights. For example, like a red mage or a summoner for them didn't bring enough DPS to clear the fights, so once they hit Enrage, they would swap out their summoner or red mage towards a black mage, because a black mage just brings so much more damage to the team right now than their counterparts. So if you're somebody that used to be kind of skeptical about playing black mage because you were the selfish DPS job with zero team utility, then right now is the time to try it out and give it a go, because it's definitely worth playing right now. So with all of that being said, I think I covered just about everything that you should know about playing black mage. There's probably some things that I've missed, but if I did, then I'll recommend you go check out the Balance Discord, because there's a bunch of beautiful people over there that make brilliant guides for all of the jobs to play if you want some more in-depth tutorials, other than just a quick overview of what their skills and rotation look like. So with that being said, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.